Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
Authorities in the city of Morgan Hill, California say that a young woman who vanished late last month was found dead just days later, and now her ex-boyfriend has been arrested for her murder after reportedly trying to sneak back into the country. The whole thing began on the night of June 28th when 18-year-old Marissa DiNapoli was last heard from by her family around 9:16 p.m. Marissa texted her family saying she'd be staying over at a friend's place that night. But when no one could get a hold of her the next day, her family grew worried and reported her missing on June 30th. Police quickly launched an investigation, which led them to some troubling clues. Surveillance footage from a Ring camera showed Marissa leaving a home on Trail Drive the next morning at around 9:45 a.m. She wasn't alone. She was with her ex-boyfriend, 20-year-old Martin Mendoza. Not only did Mendoza live at the property where the Ring camera footage was recorded, but Marissa's car was later recovered in the same area. Sadly, the search ended in tragedy just a few days later. On July 2nd, investigators found a body near Anderson Lake, and the next day it was confirmed to be Marissa DiNapoli. According to prosecutors, phone data showed Mendoza and Marissa headed toward Anderson Lake after leaving Trail Drive. As police worked to piece together what happened, Mendoza quickly became a person of interest. Officers said he was not cooperative, and on June 30th, the same day Marissa was reported missing, police were actually called to a disturbance involving Mendoza and one of Marissa's family members. Mendoza reportedly ran into a house and refused to speak with officers. Authorities now allege that after taking Marissa to Anderson Lake on the morning the final footage of her was recorded, Mendoza stabbed her 5 times in the back. They say he then left her to die near a picnic area. On July 1st, investigators say Mendoza fled the country. His car was captured on video crossing into Mexico at the San Ysidro border. Just days later, an arrest warrant was issued, and Mendoza was detained by U.S. Marshals when he attempted to walk back into the United States at the California-Mexico border on July 6th. Mendoza has now been charged with first-degree murder and the use of a knife to commit murder. He is currently being held without bail and is set to return for a plea hearing in September. After her death, Marissa's family shared their devastation but asked for privacy, saying they appreciated the love and support but requested no GoFundMe pages or donations be created. They asked people to show support through prayers, kind words, and shared memories instead. At the time of this recording, Mendoza remains in custody awaiting his next court date. Marissa's family says they're determined to keep her memory alive while they fight for justice for the young woman they say brought nothing but joy into the world.
Police say a terrifying child kidnapping attempt was narrowly stopped in Brooklyn over the weekend after a would-be kidnapper grabbed a 6-year-old boy off the street, only to drop him and run when the boy's parents realized what was happening and chased him. It all happened around 10 p.m. on Sunday, July 6th, near the corner of Stillwell and Surf Avenues in Coney Island. In harrowing video footage taken at the scene, the suspect, 36-year-old Jonathan Robolino, who was dressed head-to-toe in black and wearing a Fez-style hat, can be seen grabbing the young victim. The boy, 6-year-old Rashem Rara Gant, was walking with his parents, but had trailed slightly behind them. Rara's mom, 41-year-old Sharon Robinson, said her son's scream was what first alerted her that something was horribly wrong. Witnesses described how Robolino scooped up the boy with one arm and began to run, carrying the terrified child several yards down the sidewalk. Thankfully, though, the would-be kidnapper didn't get far. Once Robinson and her husband realized what was happening, they immediately sprinted after Robolino. Video shows the 36-year-old quickly throwing the boy to the ground and then running across an intersection as multiple cars passed through. Sharon told reporters she thinks the suspect may have hoped she wouldn't keep chasing him after he let go of Rara, but she didn't hesitate. The entire ordeal played out in seconds, but bystanders were left shaken. Nora Smiles, who owns a sneaker shop next to the scene, told local media the young victim had been running around excitedly just moments earlier. She described seeing the man try to cut off Rara before grabbing him and trying to run. Smiles and others rushed over after hearing the commotion, and she noted that some locals recognized the suspect from the area. Police officers responded quickly and arrested Robolino nearby, though apparently not before initially confusing Sharon for the aggressor in the situation. Fortunately, though, witnesses were able to clear up what had happened, and Robolino was taken into custody. He has since been charged with assault and attempted kidnapping. Meanwhile, Rara complained of minor pain and was taken to Coney Island Hospital, where he was listed in stable condition. Robinson later shared that before the frightening moment, her family had been having what she called a perfect evening, enjoying the beach, rides on the Wonder Wheel, and trying to keep up with Ra-Ra's endless energy as he ran around asking for popcorn. They say they're just glad that their son's screams for help alerted them in time, preventing what could have turned into every parent's worst nightmare.
Representatives from Tennessee's Chattanooga Police Department say they're searching for a suspect this week after a gunman shot 4 people during what was supposed to be a fun high school reunion. The incident took place on the afternoon of July 12th at the Tyner Community Center. According to reports, more than 24 former classes from a local high school had gathered in the park outside the community center and were enjoying a relaxing afternoon until suddenly, things descended into chaos. At approximately 3 p.m., attendees were startled as gunshots began to ring out in the park, which was crowded with families, many of whom had young children. The terrified witnesses were forced to duck for cover and run for their lives as they struggled to figure out what was happening. Currently, it appears police are also trying to piece together exactly what took place. While we know that 4 people were hospitalized with non-life-threatening gunshot wounds following the incident, right now, almost no other information has been released. The only details we do have come from media interviews with witnesses, who say that this shooting was the result of some sort of dispute between a small group of people at the reunion event. And though police say they're searching for a suspect, no details about this person's identity are currently available. Still, authorities are asking for anyone who might have additional information or footage related to the incident to please come forward.
Authorities in Lexington, Kentucky say that they are investigating the aftermath of a tragic incident this week after a man went on a horrifying and fatal shooting rampage, a crime which predominantly took place at a local church. The disturbing incident began at around 11:30 a.m. on July 13th, when a Kentucky state trooper conducted a traffic stop on a male driver near the Bluegrass Airport. The man's vehicle had been flagged by an automated license plate reader, and at first it seemed like he was cooperating. However, after being pulled over, he allegedly pulled out a gun and shot the trooper through his window. As horrified witnesses tended to the wounded officer, the male suspect fled the scene, carjacking another victim in the area. Unfortunately, though, this was only the beginning. Once behind the wheel of the stolen vehicle, the suspect drove approximately 20 miles southeast to the Richmond Road Baptist Church. Upon arriving, he entered through the basement back door, where 2 women, 72-year-old Beverly Gum and her daughter, Star Rutherford, were busy making lunch for their congregation. According to Star, the man, who she identified as Guy House, demanded to see one of her sisters, who was also the mother of his 3 kids. When she and her mom explained that his sister wasn't there, House reportedly replied, quote, "Well, someone's gonna have to die then." Immediately afterwards, he opened fire on them. While Star was not hit and her mother managed to avoid the first shot, sadly, the next round struck Beverly in the chest. She died from her injuries not long afterwards. In the meantime, House allegedly exited the church, shooting 3 other people as he headed outside. One of Beverly's other daughters, 34-year-old Christina Combs, was also killed, while Christina's husband, Randy Combs, and Beverly's husband, Jerry Gum, were seriously injured. Jerry Gum is also said to be the pastor of the Richmond Road Baptist Church. Moments after these attacks, police responded to the scene where they exchanged fire with House. House was killed in the shootout, while Randy Combs and Jerry Gum were rushed to a local hospital. It said that they are now recovering, along with the Kentucky State Trooper. At the time of this recording, no motive has been released behind the awful crime, and police have not officially identified Guy House, though his name has been widely circulated in news reports. What we do know, though, is that the Combs and Gum families have been left absolutely devastated by the incident. According to reports, both Beverly and Christina were mothers who were devoted members of their church community. Beverly was known for providing food to the less fortunate, while Christina had a 6-month-old baby at home and was supposed to be graduating from nursing school in December. The investigation continues.
Police in California say what started out as a Saturday morning wait in line for Pokemon cards turned into a violent attack last week, one that left a man hospitalized and 2 under arrest. The whole thing went down on July 5th outside a GameStop on Junipero Serra Boulevard in the town of Colma. According to prosecutors, 49-year-old Miguel Orianas Flores showed up early that morning and was first in line at the store for the release of a new Pokemon card set. But around 9:20 a.m., Things got messy when several members of Flores' family, along with 27-year-old Isaiah Collis, reportedly joined Flores at the ferry front. The unidentified victim, who had been waiting fifth in line, confronted them about cutting. What began as an argument quickly escalated into a full-on fight. Prosecutors say Flores smashed a glass mason jar he was carrying, which apparently had cannabis inside, over the victim's head. Then, Collis allegedly grabbed broken shards of the glass and stabbed the victim multiple times. The brawl spilled out into the street outside the GameStop, and footage later shared by local media showed one of the men trying to insist he'd apologize before things turned violent. When officers arrived a few minutes later, they found the victim suffering from several stab wounds and lacerations to the head. Police say they immediately gave medical aid before rushing the victim to a nearby hospital with life-threatening injuries. Thankfully, his condition was later upgraded to stable. Before officers could arrest anyone, both suspects fled in separate cars, a Honda and a Toyota. But it didn't take authorities long to track them down. Colma police located the Honda in the area of Junipero Serra Boulevard and Serramonte Boulevard, while nearby Daly City Police found the Toyota parked at Gellert Park. Both Flores and Collis were taken into custody. In court on Tuesday, July 8th, Flores and Collis pled not guilty to charges including assault with a deadly weapon, assault causing great bodily injury, battery with serious bodily injury, and conspiracy to commit a crime. Both remain in custody for now, with bail set at $25,000 for Collis and $10,000 for Flores. They're scheduled to appear in court again for a preliminary hearing on August 13th. At the time of this recording, police say the victim is recovering, and the investigation into the violent clash over the Pokemon cards is still ongoing.
A popular powerlifting influencer is in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons this week after being arrested for domestic violence barely a year after facing separate felony charges tied to an unhinged revenge scheme involving her ex-boyfriend. Miami police say 33-year-old Stephanie Cohen Magarici, better known online as Steffi Cohen, was arrested on July 2nd and charged with misdemeanor battery. According to a police affidavit, the incident began during a heated argument between Cohen and her live-in boyfriend. Things allegedly escalated when the boyfriend tried to leave after realizing Cohen had been recording their conversation on her laptop. At that point, Cohen is said to have accused the man of stealing her phone after seeing him grab his own and put it in his pocket. The victim told police that Cohen then began scratching him and even tore his pants pocket during the struggle. When officers arrived, they reported seeing multiple scratches on the man's forehead, face, neck, chest, and stomach. Cohen, for her part, told police the victim had punched her in the right eye and scratched her face, but an examination reportedly showed she only had a single visible scratch on one of her biceps. It's the latest legal trouble for Cohen, who has over 1 million followers on Instagram, where she often posts powerlifting and boxing content under the name Dr. Steffi Cohen. Born in Venezuela, she's a 25-time world record-breaking powerlifter and once held all-time world records for the squat, total, and deadlift in the 123-pound weight class. She also has a professional boxing record of 4-1-1. But in 2024, Cohen was arrested after being accused of hacking into her ex-boyfriend's laptop back in March of 2022. Prosecutors say she guessed his iCloud password, found nude photos of his new girlfriend, and shared them in a group chat that included the woman herself, allegedly telling the victim she was doing it, quote, with the purpose of exposing and humiliating her. Cohen was charged with felony unauthorized computer access, misdemeanor sexual cyber harassment, criminal mischief, and resisting arrest without violence. During that arrest, police say she tried to get away by walking quickly back toward her home and even hooked her leg around an officer, sweeping him off his feet before eventually being handcuffed. At the time, she claimed on social media that she had been falsely accused by a vengeful ex. Cohen is still facing a trial on the earlier charges, with a hearing already set for August. Meanwhile, it isn't clear if she's entered a plea or retained an attorney in connection to this month's domestic violence arrest. Her Instagram account is now set to private. At the time of this recording, Cohen remains free pending further court proceedings, but prosecutors say the case is still very much active.
Police in a small Maine town say they're still searching for answers more than a week after the shocking murder of a local paddleboarder, a case that has left the tight-knit community shaken and fearful. It all started on the evening of July 2nd, when 48-year-old Sunshine Sonny Stewart set out alone for a paddleboard outing on Crawford Pond in the town of Union, about 30 miles east of Augusta. When she didn't return, a search was launched that stretched into the night. Around 1 a.m. on July 3rd, Sunny's body was discovered on 100 Acre Island, a wooded spot in the middle of the pond that's only reachable by boat. Officials have called her death a homicide, but haven't released details about exactly how she died, only saying she was found under unusual circumstances. Currently, no suspects have been identified. Sunny had rented a seasonal campsite at the nearby Micmac family campground starting in May, although she'd only stayed there 2 or 3 nights before her disappearance. Catherine Lunt, the campground's owner, said she's provided authorities with hours of security footage. The campground, which covers around 60 acres, is equipped with 16 cameras featuring facial recognition, along with motion detectors. Lunt says she knows everyone who comes and goes, and the campground itself isn't considered part of the crime scene, although police have been using it to access the island. Friends say Sunny was known for her love of the outdoors and her generous spirit. A woman who grew up with Sunny said the murder has rattled her sense of safety in a place where crimes like this rarely happen. She told reporters, quote, "I was very shocked. This stuff doesn't happen here, not to us," she said, adding that for the first time she started locking her doors and windows at night. Another friend, Alicia Simonti, called Sunny her soul sister, remembering how she brought people together, whether it was through carpentry projects, sharing meals, or simply spending mindful time on the water. She said, quote, "Sunny had this uncanny ability to bring people together, share her love for all things," Simonti told reporters. Maine State Police say they're continuing to follow up on every lead they receive and have asked the public to remain vigilant. They're particularly looking for anyone who may have seen Sunny paddleboarding on July 2nd between 6 and 9 p.m. on Crawford Pond. At the time of this recording, no arrests have been made, and officials are urging anyone with information to contact police as the investigation continues.
Authorities say a Georgia teenager has been charged with the brutal murders of her own mother and stepfather after investigators spent months quietly building their case in what they describe as a chilling and senseless crime. The story begins back on February 20th of this year, when 41-year-old Kristen Brock and her husband, 45-year-old James Brock, were found shot to death in bed at their home in the community of Tyus, about 55 miles west of Atlanta. The bodies were discovered by the couple's 5-year-old daughter, but according to police, it was the couple's older child, 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick, who actually called 911 to report what had happened. From the start, investigators noted something strange about the crime scene. There were no signs of forced entry, nothing appeared to be stolen, and only one door was found slightly ajar. Despite the bizarre circumstances, police kept quiet as they worked through what they later described as mountains of digital and physical evidence, collaborating with the FBI and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's crime lab. Months went by before there was any public break in the case. Then, on July 8th, Sarah Grace Patrick turned herself in at the Carroll County Jail after being charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault. She will be tried as an adult. Carroll County Sheriff Terry Langley and Captain Shane Halsey later explained why it took so long to make the arrest, saying investigators wanted to make absolutely sure that they had the right suspect before filing charges. Among the key pieces of evidence, they pointed to Patrick's emotional speech at her mother's funeral, which they now believe may have been part of an attempt to cover her tracks. At this point, investigators say they still don't know why the teen would allegedly kill her parents. Halsey told reporters, quote, "We don't know what goes through the mind of a child who wants to harm their parents. She's 17. She's kind of been out on her own. She's lived with different family members and moved all over the place." Authorities also added they aren't ruling anything out and say more arrests could still be possible. That being said, after news of the major development this week, it didn't take long for more disturbing information to come to light. Specifically, details about Patrick's social media activity between the time of the crime and her eventual arrest. In a series of now extremely chilling TikTok posts, Patrick seemingly attempted to draw attention and sympathy towards herself, pleading for, quote, "prayers for healing." She spoke about missing her mother and stepfather so much and wanting to go home, describing her life as a, quote, "horror movie that never ends." In one particularly jarring upload, the 17-year-old made a video featuring a collage of photos of the 2 victims. Over the top of the images, she wrote, quote, "They don't know it, but a year from now, me and my 5-year-old sister would find them wrongfully shot dead in our home and won't get to watch me graduate high school, see me walk down the aisle, and couldn't even say goodbye." While Patrick's TikTok account has since been deleted, in yet another strange twist, a popular true crime TikTok creator has now come forward claiming that Patrick reached out asking them to cover her parents' murders. The message, which was sent on June 3rd, reportedly read, quote, "Look up Brock case." When the creator responded in confusion, Patrick apparently went on to write, quote, "Kristen and James Brock, they're my parents, and out of nowhere, a random Thursday night in February, someone came in my house with me and my 5-year-old sister and left my parents for me and my 5-year-old sister to wake up to." Beyond the horrifying details of the investigation itself, the murders have devastated the couple's community, especially their church family at Catalyst Church. Friends and parishioners describe Kristen as bubbly and endlessly kind-hearted, someone who loved to hug everyone she met. James, meanwhile, was remembered for his constant jokes and for always trying to make people laugh. The Brocks leave behind 7 children from their combined family. Before Patrick's arrest, members of the church had pleaded publicly for whoever was responsible to come forward, saying that the family had already suffered enough. At the time of this recording, Sarah Grace Patrick remains in custody with no bail. If convicted, she faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.